Yo, what's up, big homie? I got about 20 minutes before our virtual session starts, so I want to make sure I get time in to go over your work. So yeah, let's get started really quick. Um, which honestly, as a full collection so far, everything that I see just looks very solid. You obviously have a good understanding of exposure. Your framing is very solid, and I mean, especially even down here with the portrait stuff. But let's first talk about the shots from the last class, right? Um, Offhand, solid composition, great usage of the rule of thirds, and decent exposure. I would have exposed a little bit lower, just because of, like, you can see some of these highlights, on the forehead, and you know, oftentimes we want to brighten things up just to for visibility, but that element of darkness and then what we see, that is that natural contrast that comes from certain levels of light, is going to just be great for just like the overall harmony of your work, in general. Um, and I can see that, is common within the rest of your work, right? Like, composition is there is solid, right? Timing is solid, framing is solid, and I'm not sure if you were there for the last virtual session. We talked about um just maintaining like a balance, right? And there's always a balance you want to maintain between your colors, between your lights, balance between objects, number of objects. There's a lot of things within photography that, you know, are going to be aesthetically pleasing, but also things that create a sense of balance within the viewing experience of the work, right? So, in terms of like this gallery, something that I can see, and I'm not sure if this is a setting in camera or something in post, but what it looks like is it looks like you brought up your shadows. Um, Not entirely sure whether you shot on full auto or if you brought up your shadows in your work, but something that I can kind of tell is like, just especially when you look into like the darker areas, there is supposed to be a natural separation between some of these darks that I just don't see. And that's something that we kind of want to make sure we be careful and try to avoid, especially in the post process. Like here, right? You can really see it here on this camera. Like, this, it's a black object, so it should be a lot darker. I know that there's some shiny artifacts to it, but there should be just a darker, uh, uh, and a more starch, more stark contrast between um your whites and your darks. Like this area, this is a darker, shadier area. It should reflect that. And and one thing you can tell is like, once you start seeing some of these dark noise and grain artifacts, that's us. That's the camera and the image kind of being stressed out because of how much extra um light is trying to be pulled out of it, and there's just not enough detail, right? So a lot of that comes across as grain and noise, and can be, can add other little undesirable artifacts to the image. And that's something that I see through some of these. Like, this area should be a lot darker, right? There shouldn't be an even distribution of light between her face and her shoulder, right? Because it's clearly more light here than it is here. And so just being careful of that when we're editing is going to be a great way to maintain like that balance, right? Like here, I love the framing of this shot, like super solid. The patterns and your decision to include this portion, and it's even to this portion. It's like, what was it, like Neapolitan ice cream, but it's fire though. Like, it's a great shot. And the composition is solid. The exposure is solid. I just think that, and please correct me if I'm wrong when you see this, but it does feel like you just increased the shadows a tad too much in your editing process with these images. But I mean, other than that, man, these are very solid images. Very, very solid images. Yeah, I don't really have any for a shot like this. I would probably compose it a little bit wider. Like, you got a mural, show a little bit more of that, show more of like what's going on, in that background, and just kind of use that space as a means of conveyance that this is a person in an environment where they're affected by that environment. And I think that could be another approach, not like worse or better, but just a different approach that I probably would have gone with that image. um No, these are very solid. Like the same way you got this, like a shot like that, or just giving more of that setting in that background, I think would have posed to be a better option for this image, just like you did with this one, right? This is very solid, very strong. And as always, you can never uh, frame and crop and rotate um, for balance too much, basically. So I probably would have rotated a slight bit to give him more of like a straight up look. I know it seems like he's straight up, but he's kind of like at an angle a little bit, and so rotating him a tad bit, I think would be a good option there. Um, but yeah. Let's go take a look at your. Oh, we didn't even see these. Oh yeah, exactly. Same principle, right? Very solid image. The lighting is good here. The shot that I can really see like that, those shadows pulled out the most is in this image, right? Like there's like a lot of um dark areas that I feel like really would benefit greatly from they staying dark. And like here, just like a lot of shadowy areas that really should maintain a darker, richer shadow. And I just think it would just help to add more like character to that image. But yeah, man, solid image. For this one though, I would have liked to see more headspace for a shot like this. Probably go with a portrait orientation rather than like a horizontal landscape orientation. And like we talked about in the virtual session last week, you're either going to cut it in or cut it out, right? So it's like, we want to have either show the whole foot, or we're going to cut off the foot so that it doesn't leave it doesn't feel like an accident. And we just want to make sure we're intentional when it comes to like how we frame things so that that balance can always be maintained. And yeah, so I probably would have gone with like a portrait orientation, shooting vertical, and then just give a little bit more headspace. Don't necessarily need the feet. The leg and the crossing legs, like that's a cool posture, and I can see wanting to get that. I probably would have cut and did like a crop right down here at the ankle, something like that. That way I can get this couch, get the leg, get the hands, but still go for like that headspace that will give it that better balance. Um, love this shot. Really, no notes on it. It's great shot, great orientation. I remember when you got it. You were it was at the end of class, dude. This is fire. I was super jealous, dude, because I could not. I wasn't. I didn't have my camera with me to get this, but this is a super solid shot. Like I have no. Yeah, I don't really have any notes for this one. This was a banger, absolute banger. Um, maybe wider, maybe wider. I think we talked about it a little bit that day. Um, when I'm shooting the sky, when I'm shooting sunsets and things like that, I'm generally going to underexpose, right? I'm generally going to underexpose so that we can really get all of the details out of that sky as possible, right? Sometimes it's going to be naturally brighter, and for exposing for these areas, we do tend to lose a lot of detail in the really really highlights, in the sky and stuff like that. So I think exposing for the sky first and foremost, because that's the real subject matter, right? The street and the cars and all this other stuff, that's kind of like supporting cast for a shot like this. So since there's a supporting cast, make sure when it comes to exposure, the sky and the light gets the top billing. That way you can maintain all the detail that you need, and then go in and maybe brighten up some of the shadows as needed for here. But solid shot regardless. And then let's go over to these headshots. I mean, dude, you crushed these. Crushed these. Love the little, the Rembrandt situation going on. The backlighting is solid, right? Like a lot of people tend to forget and not consider that the backlighting can add a great deal of depth and just like just flavor to the shot, man. And just like these are very very solid. Love the another Rembrandt, but I see you added like a little bit more rim light on here. I don't know if you added, yeah, you didn't have it here, so this is kind of like a kind of split more Rembrandt, and then you threw in the little hair light right there to add a little bit of accent. And like you can just see just between these two, like they're both good in their own right, but like that rim light, man, sometimes it can be like that deciding factor. Like it just transforms that shot entirely. Um, very very solid, man. Yeah, Same here. You went with this is more of a split lighting setup with another hair light coming around the side. Um, I can't tell the exact angle. It looks like it's kind of somewhere off a little bit lower. Generally, if you have the option, for my hair lights, I like to go up a little bit higher. So I probably will go up in this top corner and then I would shoot it kind of forward so that um there's no light spillage. I mean, there isn't any here. You got this knocked out. But I would probably go a little bit higher because right now the hair light is hitting the face, neck, this side, but I don't actually see it on the hair itself. Like I don't really see that separation. And so by bringing it up a little bit higher, and if you can angle it a little bit further sometimes, like behind the subject, and have the light like come forward, that can be really good. Did my camera go off? Hold on. Wait a minute. Why did the camera go away? That's the real question. Hold on. Let me get that right for you, dude. We need this to stay on. Um, if it keeps tripping, then I might have to just keep going with the image as is. That way we don't have. Uh, there we go. All right, we're good. We're good. Um, but yeah, you know having that light come from like a higher area and maybe behind can give you like that. It'll give a cool effect. I'll talk about it maybe a little bit in this next virtual session because I have some cool shots that I did recently that I think we could talk about. But putting that hair light up behind could give you that good separation between foreground and background that you're looking for. But solid shots, man. Very very solid. Um, yeah, very sharp images. You got the focus right where it needs to be, right on the eyes. A wider aperture would help with just kind of like a full focus all the way through because you got the sharpness on the eyes, but you do lose a little bit of focus, on the lips and then like some on the back of the hair. For a shot like this, a wider aperture just to make sure the whole face is sharp would be I think more advantageous. But yeah, solid, cool post process. Nope, dope. And so here I can see that hair light and that rim light becoming a lot more prominent. So wherever you adjusted it, whether it was the light itself or whether it was you or the subject coming further closer, that was you got a better result here for sure. And like as you can see here, right? We're looking got the sharpness in the eyes, but as we go back further into the hair, we're losing some of that focus and what that does is, as you can see, it kind of it gives it a little bit of a weird effect, right? Like we know that that's as a result of the focus, right? Like we know that's a result of focus being missed, but just like in that moment, it does give it like a weird effect. And even as we look further back, it doesn't necessarily look like a missed focus. It kind of looks almost like some distortion. So that's why a solid aperture for portraiture, especially in studio like this, a solid wide aperture to get most of that area in focus will be definitely a better decision. Like here, we got your elbow in it, right? Like you got to make sure that's sharp unless you're doing something particularly soft with a really shallow depth of field. But great work, great work. Honestly, is that all of them? Yeah, I think so, dude. Heck yeah. No, you crushed these, man. And then just another note. This is not particularly a photography note. This is more for editing, post processing. But if you're not gonna iron the backdrop, make sure you go in with that spot removal healing tool, and you can just clean up these little you know areas and these divots. Like that tool in Lightroom that is a spot removal, healing, cloning, all that stuff. These things can help get rid of like wrinkles and flatten out or smoothen out textures and backgrounds in a great way. But otherwise, solid work, man. These are fire, bro. Fire. Thank you for submitting. Um, yeah. All right.